Somewhere in your town right now, a cafe is handing out buckets of free coffee grounds, and brand new growers are scooping them up like they struck gold. Most of those grows are already dead. They just do not know it yet. Because the boring bale of straw those same people walked right past will grow more mushrooms than the grounds ever could, and it is not even close. So if you want the short answer to which one grows more, it's straw. Stick around because the reason the richer option loses is strange, and it will save you a stack of heartbreaking batches. I understand why coffee feels like the obvious winner. It's free. It comes out of the machine warm and wet, already ground into tiny pieces, and it's loaded with nitrogen. Every gardening blog treats the stuff like a miracle. On paper, it should bury straw. What happens in real life is almost the exact opposite, and that gap is the whole story. So what actually goes wrong inside that bag? Coffee grounds are rich, almost too rich. They carry a lot of nitrogen, and mushroom mycelium does like some nitrogen, but so do every mold, bacterium, and green fuzzy invader hanging around your kitchen. When you lay out a buffet that generous, the guests you did not invite are first through the door. Growers who try pure coffee run straight into trichoderma, that aggressive green mold, plus sour anaerobic bacteria when the grounds sit too wet. The research keeps circling the same three problems: too much nitrogen, a low and acidic pH, and moisture that traps itself. That mix is a welcome mat for the exact organisms you're trying to beat. This is where most first-timers lose a grow without understanding why. They watch the green fuzz creep in, blame their spawn or their luck, then run it back with the same wet, overfed grounds. The grounds were the villain the entire time.
There's a detail almost nobody talks about. Coffee still has caffeine and other plant compounds baked into it, and those actively slow your mushrooms down. In controlled studies, once spent coffee pushed past roughly 30% of the mix, fruiting basically stalled. The mushrooms just could not power through. So the very thing that makes coffee feel strong, all that leftover chemistry, is quietly working against you. Now flip to the physical side, because this part surprised me the most. Coffee grounds are tiny and dense. Pack them down and they squish into a wet, airless brick. And mushrooms breathe. Mycelium has to breathe through the whole substrate, all the way into the core, and dense coffee smothers that airflow. Cut off that airflow and growth slows to a crawl. That fine, muddy texture is also why coffee is slower to colonize in the first place, which hands the mold even more time to move in before your mushrooms can claim the space. Straw plays the opposite game. Those hollow stems hold their shape. They stack loosely, they trap little pockets of air, and they let oxygen wander deep into the middle where the real work is happening. Straw is not as rich as coffee, and that is precisely why it wins. Fewer nutrients means fewer freeloaders scrapping with your mushrooms over the meal. Straw is more forgiving, far more reliable, and yes, a little boring. Boring is exactly what you want when you're starting out, because boring means predictable, and predictable means you actually get to eat something. This is the spot where a lot of beginners get tricked, so I will be blunt about the money. People pick coffee because it is free, but free grounds that rot 3 grows in a row are not free. You paid for the spawn. You paid with your time, your bags, your fridge space, and that little gut punch of watching another jar go green. A bale of straw might run you a few dollars, and one bale grows a serious pile of mushrooms. Cheap and working beats free and failing every single time. Time to get practical, and I will start with coffee because you can still make it behave if you respect it. First rule, use your grounds fresh. Same day if you can manage it, within a day or two at the very outside. They leave the machine hot and wet and nearly clean, and that is your window. Let them sit on the counter and mold colonizes them for you, so now you are basically inoculating your substrate with the enemy. If they already smell sour or show any fuzz, throw them out and do not think twice. Second rule, do not go pure. Cut your grounds with pasteurized straw or with hardwood sawdust or pellets. Half and half is a sensible place to start, and honestly, leaning toward less coffee is safer still. The straw opens up the texture so air can move, and it waters down that aggressive nitrogen into something your mushrooms can actually handle. Growers over at Cornell landed in the same spot. Keep the grounds fresh, add structure, stay clean. Third rule, pile on the spawn. Coffee wants a heavier spawn rate than usual, somewhere around a quarter of the mix by weight, sometimes more. More spawn means your mushrooms colonize faster and shut the door before mold gets comfortable. A stingy spawn rate on coffee is just failure in slow motion. And whatever container you pack it into, give it some airflow. A few small holes or filter patches let the block breathe, because sealing wet coffee inside a tight bag is how you grow bacteria instead of dinner. Now for straw, which is the road I would actually put a beginner on, chop it into short pieces, somewhere around 3 to 5 inches. A pair of shears or a weed trimmer and a trash can gets the job done. Then you pasteurize, and this is the step people love to skip and then bitterly regret. Pasteurizing just means heating your straw in water to somewhere around 160 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit and holding it there for about an hour. No fancy gear, a big pot and a thermometer will cover it. A quick word on the why, because pasteurization and sterilization get tangled up constantly, and the difference really does matter. Sterilizing kills every living thing and leaves a blank slate, which sounds perfect right up until one stray spore lands and spreads with nothing left to fight it. Pasteurizing is gentler. It beats the competitors way back while leaving some harmless microbes behind, and those survivors actually help crowd out invaders. For a hungry, aggressive mushroom like the oyster on cheap straw, pasteurizing is plenty. And that is a big reason straw is so forgiving for beginners. You skip the pressure cooker entirely. No stove space? Cold pasteurization has your back. Soak your chopped straw in water mixed with hydrated lime for a few hours, and the high pH does the same job with no heat at all. Either way, drain it and now meet the squeeze test, your best friend in this whole hobby. Grab a fistful and squeeze it as hard as you can. You want 1 or 2 drops of water, no more than that. If it streams out, it is too wet and bacteria will move right in. If nothing comes out, it is too dry and your mushrooms will struggle to run. A wrung-out sponge is the feeling you're aiming for. Coffee, by the way, clings to water more tightly and prefers to sit a touch drier, right around that wrung-out edge. Then you inoculate. Layer your grain spawn through the straw, roughly 1 part spawn to 5 parts substrate. Pack it into a bag or bucket with a few air holes and tuck it somewhere dark around 65 to 75 degrees. Give it a couple of weeks and the whole thing turns bright white with mycelium. Move it into light, keep the humidity high, and fan in some fresh air a few times a day so carbon dioxide does not build up and leave you with long, leggy stems. Your first pins arrive looking like little pale buttons, and from there they roughly double in size each day. Pick the cluster just before the caps flatten out and start to curl up at the edges, which is when they taste their best and make the least mess.
For species, keep it simple. Oyster mushrooms are the champions here on both substrates, which is why the Japanese call them haratake and grow them by the ton. They are fast, greedy, and almost impossible to kill. Pink oysters, blue oysters, the whole family adores straw. If you are dead set on coffee, oysters are still your safest pick, and they honestly seem to shrug the stuff off better than anything else out there. Now, the idea that flips this whole argument on its head: stop thinking of coffee as a substrate and start thinking of it as a supplement. A scoop of fresh grounds worked into a straw or sawdust base can genuinely lift a harvest, because a little extra nitrogen in a well-aerated home is a gift, while a whole house of it is a riot. That is the move experienced growers actually make. Coffee is the seasoning, straw is the meal. Penn State's Daniel Royce spent a career digging into what really moves oyster yields, and the levers that kept surfacing were the unglamorous ones: spawn rate, substrate quality, a clean setup, not some secret ingredient. There's a number growers lean on called biological efficiency, basically how many mushrooms you get back for the substrate you put in, and straw done right keeps pace with almost anything.
Coffee on its own, with its contamination habit and that stalled fruiting, rarely gets the chance to prove itself. A solid straw batch can hand you back a pound or more of mushrooms for every couple of pounds of dry straw you started with. Pure coffee that molds out hands you back a science lesson and a smell you will not forget.
So, the final call. If you want the most mushrooms with the least heartbreak, grow oysters on pasteurized straw. It is cheap, it breathes, and it forgives the rookie mistakes that would sink a coffee batch. Reach for coffee grounds when you are running a tiny kitchen experiment, when you love the recycling angle, or best of all, when you fold them in fresh as a supplement inside a straw base. That is where coffee quietly earns its keep. This lesson took me years to actually trust. The richest option is not automatically the best one. In mushrooms, and probably in a few things well beyond mushrooms, a little restraint and a lot of airflow will beat raw abundance almost every time. If this video is informative, then comment yes. That motivates us to produce more videos like this.